Just gonna get to walk. That's okay. Lots of walking
New
this
Year.
weekend. Okay, no. Jesus, what's that? It's been a long minute. Oh, no, it's 6:00. Well, it is now 6 p.m. and I am calling to order this regular meeting of the Sunnyvale School District Board. This meeting is available in English and Spanish, and today we have our wonderful translators. Can you please give us the instructions about the translation services available?
Yes, good evening, everyone. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in this meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select their language of preference by clicking the language when the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the world icon located on your feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration. Buenas noches a todos. Se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración.
Thank you. Please know that a recording is being made at the direction of the board and that the recorder maybe captures sounds and from people attending the meeting. So if you are not talking, please mute yourself. Well, I see that all the board members are present today in person. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will now read or brief acknowledgement of land and life. Sunnyvale School District is located on the ancestral and unceded land of the Muhuiba Oglon tribe, who have peacefully honored and cared for this land for thousands of years. We recognize that every member of the Sunnyvale community continues to benefit for the use and occupation of this land. We acknowledge our responsibility to learn from the wisdom of the Oglon people and to consider how we might work to repair injustices and move forward together in honorable ways. And now is the approval of the agenda. It is recommended that the board approve the agenda. If there is any member of the public who would like to speak on this particular item, which is the approval of the agenda, please use your raise hand feature. And nobody? Okay. Not seeing any, the board, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Sure, I move to approve tonight's agenda.
Any second?
I'll second that.
Okay. If anyone is okay with that, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. With that, we have an agenda for tonight that is approved. We can move on. Now, the next item will be our study session. Wait, just log in. Okay, we have the study session for tonight is strategic planning update. And for that, the contact person is Dr. Tasha Dean, our Chief Teaching and Learning Officer.
Thank you for that. We do have our guest this evening who will be presenting on our behalf to support the work that we've started this school year with Performance Facts. So we're excited, Matu, to join us this evening and bring us some words of wisdom and kind of where we are, status update and some of the work we've started. So welcome to you and we look forward to hearing you tonight.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can you guys?
It's on, okay. Good evening, board members and the superintendent's cabinet. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you had a nice break in the last few weeks. What I thought we'll do tonight is to give you an update on the strategic planning process. We do it in 3 parts. One part will be the process itself, just so you get a feel for the approach that we're taking. Every strategic planning organization has their own approach. So I want to spend a few minutes just explaining how we view strategic planning. So that's part 1. That might take about 5 to 7 minutes. Part 2 will be to look at the data, because everything we do begins with student data. There's a 52-page document which you have already electronic versions of. The intent is not to go through the whole document, but maybe choose some highlights, a few selected pages to have you actually analyze what do you see in the data. So not only so you get a feel for what the data looks like, but also experience how we do every step of the strategic planning process. Then part 3 would be to actually give you a chance to weigh in on at least one of 2 main components of the strategic plan. The first one is the portrait of the graduate. There's about 80, 90 people have weighed in on that already. I suggest that you don't go ahead in the program, so spoiler alert. So we want you to experience that. So if you were to articulate the portrait of a graduate from SCSD, what would you want those qualities to be? Okay, so the process itself, brief review of the data, and then we'll give you a chance to experience the portrait piece. And in closing, I will show you the work that's been done to date. All right. Is there anything else you'd like me to touch on before we adjourn?
I think by the end of the session, we'd like to have a little conversation about like what's next in terms of board involvement. Like maybe what you recommend, and then for us to decide like how involved or we might make the next step for the board. Okay, that'll be helpful. And I suggest too, as I present, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to bring them up. In fact, the more questions or comments you raise, the more targeted my comments will be to what's of greatest interest to you. They're generally not shy. Okay, I like that. And we are not shy either. Okay, do you have electronic access to this or just the one on the screen? Okay. There's several, we call them exhibits. This is exhibit 1A. It's the main PowerPoint presentation. And one thing about our approach is that pretty much every group we work with sees the same thing. We don't have special packages for different groups. Even though we might truncate how much time we spend on each component, everyone has access to everything. So there's a lot of material, some of which we'll pour through tonight, but the rest you get a chance to review on your own time. So strategic planning, it's about reaching consensus around what we want for all students in our school system. And let me see if I can make this work. I can figure out how to make it work. What do I need to do? Is the clicker, is this the right clicker for me? Yes. It is.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, there we go. All right, thanks. So we student-centered strategic planning process. When people ask us why plan, we suggest that the primary purpose of planning, at least a primary purpose of planning, is alignment, moving everyone and everything in the same direction towards common goals. And the direction we're moving towards is one that will ensure success for every student by name. That's the ultimate goal. How do we get people, program, processes, structures, budget, everything aligned towards those common goals? So now there are 2 parts to what I just said. One will be programs, processes, and structures. The other one is the common goal. The starting point has to be the common goals. So our approach begins by spending a fair amount of time, getting all of us to agree on what matters most for students. It's a core tenet of the approach that we recommend, and you'll see that as we unfold. This is where we've been so far. The boxes to the far left that I checked off are the sessions that have been held so far, and what you're looking at, not checked so far, is the work for just this month. This is just what's going to happen in January. For example, next week we have 3 family forums scheduled. One forum with African American, Black and Brown parents, one for Hispanic, and then I think the 3rd one is open to everybody. So just next week, there'll be at least 3 sessions for families to participate.
Just yesterday, Rose, my colleague, worked with students at one of your elementary schools, and we have several more sessions with students planned before we wrap up. So this calendar will give you a feel for what's going on. Also for next week, we have another meeting on the core planning team. This month, core planning team. We have at least one with what we call the alignment team. I like to describe them as the movers and shakers. Those are some of your key stakeholders, folks who are partners with the school district or who you count on. I think at last meeting, you want to talk about some of those folks on the alignment team?
Yes, and Isabel, you were there too. So Larry, the mayor, was there, representative from the county supervisor's office.
Yeah.
Marie Bernard from Sunnyvale Community Services, someone from
For the high school
district,
County Office of Education.
County Office of Education. Someone from El Camino couldn't make it, but they're gonna be at the next one. We're probably missing someone.
Yeah.
You get the idea.
Yeah, that's great. So when you look at the last column here, these are all the different teams that are moving concurrently. So we don't have one group set aside that figures it all out and then brings the work back and say, what do you think of this? We don't think that's the best way to go. So we're moving the core planning team has its own track. The instruction focus team is moving along, the family meeting, the student meeting, the meetings with the board, with the superintendent's cabinet, all of those are moving in tandem. And we never show the work of the previous groups to the current group. We give you a chance to kind of process it, cognitive, engage it at some level, and then we'll show you the work. And everything I'm going to share this evening looks like it's in rough form, and that's intentional. So nothing is polished, nothing is finalized. It's still every part of the process is a work in progress. So we're not done until we're done. Okay. So what are we working on? I'm going to start with this. Well, this is the planning model. When we're done, you can think of the report being in three parts. Part one of the report will be outcomes for students. We call that circle number one. Part two will be what needs to happen around instruction so we can get all students home safely and well adjusted and successful. That's circle number two. And then circle number three is what infrastructure do we have to put in place? What systems and supports and services do we have to put in place to really accelerate the effectiveness of instruction in order to make sure all students succeed? The order of those three circles is really very important. And most districts make the mistake, what I call conflating ends and means. The only ends are the outcomes for kids. Everything else is a means to those ends. So circle number one are the ends we desire. Circles 2 and 3 are the means to those ends, instruction and infrastructure. But we further suggest that of those two means to the ends, one is higher, and that's instruction. Because the real magic occurs at the intersection of student, teacher, and content. So we elevate instruction or teachers and teaching to a higher level than the support system that we need to put in place. And at this point in the planning process, we have just 4 days this past month, we focused on circle number 1. And we expect to have that done by the end of this month. And then we'll move to circle number 2, which is about instructional priorities. And then circle number 3, the infrastructure to support instruction. Any questions at this point, please? Okay. So the starting point for all the work, it's always about the data. Where are we now? Now, can you please pull up Exhibit 2A? And there's a data booklet that, let me see, you should have a copy of it. It's about 54 pages in length. It has the data from some student survey results in section B. In section C, we have data about student outcomes. And then in section D, we have data about student access. We don't have time to go through all of these, but I want to point your attention to just a few sections. So could you please go to page 7? Thank you. Page 7 is a very high-level summary of the Panorama Student Survey that was taken not too many months ago. It was taken in fall of 2023. And in the first column are the domains that the survey covered. And then the next two columns show the responses from students in grades 3 through 5% favorable in each one of those domains. And then grades 6 through 8 for the domains that correspond to the middle school students. And a few of these are quite high, and many of them are average to slightly above average in terms of percent favorability. There's a lot more detail, a complimentary report that we've provided to you also if you want additional data. And I want to go to, I want to invite you to go to page.
This is in 2A.
I'm sorry,
In 2A.
actually 2A, thank you.
Okay, so that was in the email, in case you,
It wasn't in the email?
yeah, we got it later from.
It was not in.
It's not inside the packet, it's, yeah, but we've got it.
Okay, but you have, okay, thank you.
I'm just-
So-
That I sent, right?
Yeah, so it's from Mike.
And in fact, let me suggest we do this, just to give you a chance to process the content and to model how we do the analysis. I'm gonna suggest we take about 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. If you could please, take a look at pages 7 through pages 7 through 34, exhibit 2A.
So it's not from the agenda today?
This is why nothing beats a hard copy.
I will send it to you again right now. How's that?
No, she's got it and I'll.
Did everyone find it?
I've got it.
Pasha, they haven't seen these panorama survey summaries, right?
Say that again?
They haven't seen these panorama survey highlights.
No,
Okay.
no, not to anyone other than who's been a part of the process.
Okay, then I suggest we spend a few minutes looking at the survey data. On pages 7 through 34, you don't need to look at all of them. You can pick and choose elementary or middle school. For example, if you look on page 11, just to ground you in the data, page 11 is showing data for grades 3 through 5. See that highlighted in the top of the page, at the top of the page. And the domain that's been covered will be questions that attempt to tease out challenging feelings that students might have. Okay, and the specific questions and their responses are indicated on each page. So take about 5 to 7 minutes just to do your own processing of the survey data. You might look at the elementary or the middle school, or maybe some specific domains that are of interest. And then when we come back, I would like to ask each one of you to just, share out one thing that's a strength that you see in the data, or one concern that you have based on your review of the data. So let's start with 5 minutes. You can go anywhere on pages 7 through 34.
Through 34, is that what you said?
Yes, please.
I wonder if it would be, I think Tasha, this is maybe you're someone, like when we were going through this stuff in the alignment, there's that confusing where there's like the same question with different percentages because it's different grades.
I think he's clarified that in this updated data, so we don't have that confusion anymore, is my
I would
understanding.
say on the page I'm looking at, it looks just the same as.
Okay, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm gonna have to find it to be able to do that.
But so for those who are looking at
So
the
which
data
page
for
are you
the
looking
first
at?
time, page 11, so like there's the like, how often do you, during the past, how often do you feel bored? How often do you feel lonely and sad, and it's, right, so because one of them was for the 3 through 5 and one of them was for middle school, right, is what we realized.
Right, and this one is actually specific, so you'll see at
Three
the
to five.
top, it says 3
This
to
is
5.
3 to 5.
So he's separated it out.
But both questions are on that page.
And the data is different.
With the data, so that I think corresponds to page 26, where, no, 25 maybe, up here. So there's a separate one for 6 through.
But what I'm saying is it's not separated because the same exact question is on there
Oh, it is.
both times with different percentages, right? So how often do you feel sad, how
Or
often do you feel
lonely,
lonely,
Pretty
Oh,
close.
okay.
and how often you feel
I mean,
bored,
yeah.
yeah. So it's not, but just
I
for
see
those who never
2%,
looked at this data, that's
yeah.
why you might get confused. And it's, one is for one.
Yeah, one is for
one's the
home
other.
and
And
one
one is
is
for
for
school.
school.
One's at home, one's
Yeah,
at
one
school.
is about home and one is about school.
Yeah.
So that's the duplication of the question.
So the first 3 are at home or school, and then the second 3 are at home or school or home.
Yeah.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my routine. Oh, they're calling me.
When was the last survey?
This is from just this fall, I think.
No, well, in there, there's percentage change from last survey.
That's, yeah, fall to spring.
423,
Okay.
about 5 months ago.
Yeah, but it's compared to the one
The previous,
in the spring,
Previous year, yeah.
like May.
yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Can take a couple more minutes and just share out. Take another minute. Let's come back in 5 seconds, please. And Ms. Maginot?
That was a fast minute.
No, I just want to let you know you go first.
I'll go first. Michelle, you're still thinking, or you want to go first?
I'm finishing writing my notes.
Okay, well,
Okay, go ahead.
okay, I didn't write down any notes. I don't know if my microphone's on. I think it's on. Yeah, okay. So, I think it's great that sense of belonging is up, 8 points since the last time. So, because we've been working on it, it's still a little lower than I would want to see it, And, the questions about being bored, I think I saw that in the other presentation as well, like,
Mhm.
even if as adults we discount that, we could say, oh, you could ask either of my kids who are in their 20s now, how's it going? Nothing. What'd you do today? Oh, same old thing. It's not very descriptive, so maybe if board was a choice, maybe, we can kind of, as adults, discount it, but if kids are saying they're bored at school and they're not, it might at the very least indicate a lack of excitement about being there, like a lack of that fire and engagement you really want to see. So that jumped out at me a little bit. But in general, the numbers that were just in the 50s, that was really the sense of belonging, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Thank you.
That's it. It's really, I'm not comfortable looking at big chunks of data and, just speaking quickly. I did enjoy the exercises that I was in because we had time to really read them. I could write on the paper, and we had discussion about them. I thought the workshops were really great.
Thank
So I'll
you.
give you that feedback.
Thank you. Want to go next?
I can go.
Okay. Is that me?
No.
Someone comes into the meeting.
Oh, I
Just
see.
a little
Oh, yeah, Zoom.
Okay, I wish I had, because Bridget, I was in one of the workshops, right, so really gotta dive in and take more notes, I should have brought those with me. I think one of the ones that was high that I thought was good is the supportive relationships, right? And I can't remember now, I just looked at a minute ago, but there's two different ones, I can't remember exact questions, but those were
Was it home and school?
89 and 92,
Yes.
is it home and school, is that what it was?
Yeah, consistently.
Yeah, and so those were really high, so I thought that was really great. And then for me, just the board one is kind of one that's but the board one also, I think it's concerning, but I also I wanna dig into that more, right? Because actually being bored, I tell my kids today they're bored and I'm that's actually good, right? It's good for us to be bored sometimes, if we're constantly having screens thrown at us and we're entertained, but if you're not engaged with school.
Correct.
So anyways, I'm I wanna tease this out more, what is, when they're saying bored, what does that mean? What is looking at, because some versions of bored are actually good, but then not being engaged or not, whatever, wouldn't be great. And then I think generally, and this was from last time too, with a lot of the data, I really want to see it broken down by ethnic and race demographics, right? So some of the examples would be one of them is how well do you get along with students who are different than you?
Correct.
And that's actually pretty high, it's 74%, right? So that is generally really good. But it would be very interesting to me to have it broken down by demographics to see, it might be spread evenly, but it could be that certain races are feeling like we're getting along great and certain races could be feeling like we're not getting along great. And so, and then there's other ones too, just when you're feeling safe or when you're feeling cared for, our numbers are pretty high. But again, I would be very interested to see, are there any patterns with certain races or is it kind of generally dispersed among, our different kids.
Yeah. And they have patterns. In fact, we have a supplementary report, it's 2AX, that we produced the week after the last meeting, and it breaks it down by grade level and by race and ethnicity and special ed and
Okay, which number is that? I'll have to dig into that.
Yeah.
No, that was in what we got.
It's among the package we sent out.
Yeah,
It's in the-
and, yeah, I found that much more.
Okay.
That's good.
It's much more interesting. So we're going to have,
Thank you.
people doing okay, and okay is underrated. It means we have a good foundation to work from. I also echo about boredom, and what it lets me know is that kids don't know how to organize their time. Oh, sorry. Yeah, kids aren't aware of what else they can be doing, and reframe that time to maybe be something different. They're responding to the word bored because that's the only word we gave them. So maybe they're resting, maybe they're doing something else, but bored is the only word that we gave them.
Exactly. And that's the thing about data only tells us symptoms. we cannot know conclusively without doing the kind of analysis basically root cause analysis. But what do you mean by bored? What are you bored? What will make you not feel bored? We have to do that kind of digging in order to figure out whether this is something, to figure out what this means from the student's perspective. Generally speaking, our experience is most students answer that question rather low. And when we've done the follow-up question, it almost invariably leads to concerns about engagement. If the boredom persists, it's usually an indication that students don't feel engaged with what's going on in the classroom.
Right, and so if it was student engagement, then I would have a higher level of concern. But it makes me wonder about it's a touch point of wondering about what, is there a time of day, it's the additional analysis that needs to give this the context. I'm appreciative that for the most part, we're increasing capacity among our students. I'm also interested in cultural awareness and how that really differentiates about their experiences as well, and what their perception is about adults sharing with them.
Right.
I don't know. My sense is that in looking at the data, that younger children, there's not as much conversation as there is with the older ones.
Yeah.
In general, with the age break, and it's also more challenging for younger children to socialize. They're still learning basic skills, whereas older children have had more experience and more supportive opportunities to do that.
Thank you. Wants to go next?
Yes. Now, I have a few questions. I'm going to echo what everyone else said about boredom. I'm curious about the boredom as it correlates to various schools. Like, are certain students at certain schools feeling more bored? And especially within the context of some schools have more engagement opportunities because of PTA funding or having, more adults on campus, and if there's a strong correlation or any correlation there. I'm curious about that question, how well do you get along with students who are different from you? Is there like a subheading for these? If I was a child and I read a child, especially in grades 3 through 5, and I read that question, it wouldn't occur to me naturally to think that you're talking about race and culture. I might think, no, I don't like girls or something. Is like the follow-up questions, I think, are more clarifying that we're talking about race and culture here. But is there anything that would lead them to in answering that question, number one?
Not from the survey directly.
Okay.
Yeah, it will have to be the next step with the data. The data points in a certain direction. We have to do the root cause analysis to figure out what exactly does it mean. The silly example I've used for many years is you go to the hospital and they ask you for the top 2 or 3 things you don't like about the hospital. In the old days, the food used to be one of those, right? But there are very few folks who will not go to a particular hospital just because the food is bad. And you can't tease that out without doing having a discussion with the students.
And I also thought it was interesting, the difference in the between 3 through 5 and 6 through 8. How well does your school prepare you to speak up when you see injustice? Because especially the younger children think that the school prepares them very well, and I'm wondering if that's because the way they see injustice changes by middle school, so that some of their problems are bigger.
Absolutely.
I thought that was really interesting, but
Okay,
So-
we have.
Just to clarify, Nancy, did you say you found 2AX? Because I don't see 2AX in here. Does any,
Yeah, I
don't see it.
I think we might not have sent you
I found one that broke it out by schools.
oh, I saw that.
But it's not breaking,
the-
it's not breaking out the panorama data.
It's the-
You're probably looking at the academic data maybe.
Yeah, the panorama data is a supplementary
Right.
handout.
So just, Mike, will you be able to later get that to us?
Yeah.
You'd have to ask.
Jesus, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, it's like
Yes,
a lot of
thank you.
stuff that came in a short amount of time.
I don't know where it is.
Okay. What's next?
Now I do.
Yes.
No, I'm just, in that page, the difference between question 2 and question 5, the board one, both of them are, they look like the same question, but they have different results. During the past week, how often did you feel bored? And it's the same one during the past week, how often, eh?
That was what Michelle was saying, like one of them refers to board at home and one
Yeah,
refers
that's
to board at school.
Oh, but it doesn't say in the
But it
page.
doesn't say on the
Yeah.
page, yeah,
Oh,
page
okay.
11.
Yeah, I don't know, I think it's similar to the data that we see.
You need to be closer to the mic, can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yes, and I actually turned it off before, sorry about that. No, that is, I mean, it's kind of very
What you
similar
expect.
to the,
Correct.
to the information that we get
Yeah.
a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
I was, and the boredom is, that's relative and how we got it the day, how they were feeling at that particular moment. Maybe they were bored because they were feeling of this instead of doing something fun.
That's a good point.
Maybe more about I will be more worried about the part that says like if they are worried about things that happen at home more than the things that happen at school, because we were working with basic needs since the pandemic and things that were happening outside that we were trying to help even though they were out of our control. Like food insecurity and housing insecurity. That worries me a little bit more than boredom.
Correct.
As you say, boredom might be good up to a point, but I like how that they feel in general very confident about being talking with different people and cultural awareness and gender identity.
Yeah.
People is very clear and have positive feelings about that.
That's great. So in the interest of time, this is almost like a flyover.
Okay, I'm gonna do a quick,
Yes, please.
so Nancy actually found it for us, so it's not 2X. In the email Mike sent, it's the one called SESD Fall 2023 Panorama Student Survey. So good job, Nancy.
Thank you. I thought I saw it.
Yeah, we actually pulled a section of that that gives you a summary. You can really what you just talked about. It's a lot
It's long,
larger.
but
It's
that's,
longer.
but yeah, we never got the 2X, so that
Okay.
2X will be in that bigger one.
Yeah. So
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
that's all right. So again, in the interest of time, I just want to give you a feel for the data. So if with every group, what you've just done, they get a chance to do that. Sometimes for a half day, other times for just a few minutes, other times for just an hour or so. For the rest of the data packet, what I would like to suggest is a lightning round. I'll take you through a few pages so you get a feel for it, and then we'll move on to the next section. So if you could go to page 37. So part one of the data is all about student survey feedback, so student voice. Beginning on page 37 will be some data that relate to outcome. And in fact, the top of page 37 is all I want you to focus on. This shows the chronic absenteeism rate. And that's defined by what percentage of students miss more than roughly 10% of the school day, of school instruction time. So third grade students, for example, on that page, 13% of third graders miss more than 10% of school. Okay, in 2023. Kindergarten, 23%, 8th grade is 60%, and so on. All right. Let's go to the next page. Just look at some academic data. The way we set this up is to display the data in terms of how many students out of every 20 pass the state test. Okay, so in 20.
What page are we on again?
Now page 38. We're looking at student performance last 3 years in language arts, math, and science. So if you go look under ELA literacy and look at this 2022-23, and you see the number 11. Okay, That means 11 out of every 20 students in our district passed the state test that year.
Page 39.
Page 38 still,
38.
Oh, okay.
38. Okay, ELA 2022, 2023, 11 out of every 20 passed the state test. African American student, 7 out of every 20. American Indian, Alaska Native, 8 out of every 20, and so on.
Clarifying question, special education is any child,
Any
child
child,
with an
that's
IEP.
correct.
Okay.
Okay. And if you go to the next page, you can see the same result for the most recent year, but by school. And we've shown you the raw data as well as the conditionally formatted, the heat map. Okay. There should be a pattern that you're picking up now. If you go to the next page, you see the math results. Far right with very red, orange, red, and red. There are a couple of student groups that perform reasonably well, and there are other student racial ethnic groups that consistently don't perform well. Again, no big surprise, I presume to you, right? On page 41, we're looking at the science test. Right. And the last page I want to point your attention to is page 46. Okay. And this one is showing intersections. All right. On page 46, it's the intersection of race and ethnicity versus socioeconomic status. So in the upper left, looking at ELA, African American students who are economically disadvantaged, only 6 out of every 20 of them pass the state test. You following me so far?
Yeah.
The same African American students who are not economically disadvantaged, 8 out of every 20. and so on. For example, Hispanic students, 5 out of every 20 who are economically disadvantaged, pass the state test. Those who are not, 7 out of every 20. So this one is not just race and ethnicity, it sort of shows the intersection of 2 different demographic factors. But in every case, with this district and with virtually every district we work with, the data is quite predictable. The picture is generally the same. The farther right you go on the page, across the page, the redder, the more orange and redder the information is. So that's why we don't stew too much about the data, because when you look at the student data, you're looking at effects. Effects have causes. What we want to spend the time on is why does the data look that way? You could, is there anything you've picked up so far in 54 pages of data that you couldn't have guessed before this meeting this evening?
Not really.
Nothing.
So that's part of what we're doing with the strategic plan and everything we're doing. How to fix
So
it.
what I will say, what is slightly different is the pandemic years have really, the pandemic years and the
Yes.
lack of socialization that occurred have been much more impactful and cascading
Correct.
than what I think people thought they were going to be. I think everybody thought that when we got back together, we'd get back to normal.
Oh, no way.
I understand that, but the impression was, when we get back together, we'll get back to it.
But
Correct.
things were bad before COVID, so that doesn't really work either.
Well, but what I'm saying is that that students who never had experience in socialization in the younger ages are continuing to have those basic issues.
Yeah.
Whereas before, everybody still had some issues, but there wasn't the added complication.
Oh, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And group learning and everything takes place is much more dependent as one goes
Yes.
up in
Yes.
school.
Yes, Ms. Watson.
I was just gonna say, one thing, even though you're saying, oh, it's not surprising, I think, we have been focusing a lot on our Hispanic students, and special education students. I think that when we were looking through, oftentimes when we get data, like especially when we were doing all of our data school by school, like the schools would come and present. And oftentimes, like for the first couple of years I was on the board, because we would get them one school at a time, you can see in the when you have it broken up by school, the African American numbers are all redacted, right? And so I think this actually is really good in looking at it because it really highlights that area of underservice,
Yeah.
you know, them being underserved. And so, and same thing in that panorama survey, when it breaks it down by ethnicity and everything, I was actually pretty surprised. So that was surprising for me because it wasn't always broken out for us that way. So that was very helpful, actually.
That's great. Ms. Newkirk, to your point, the way I've been thinking about this is to think of the 22-23 school year as a new baseline.
Right.
We really can't, it doesn't make any sense to go back to the prior years. So the data we have now becomes our new zero.
Yeah.
And then we can measure ourselves, our growth or lack of, I expect growth, based on 22-23 data as the base year. Does that make sense to you too?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other observations before we talk about the portrait of the graduate?
No. Actually, that's pretty much what we're doing, the whole strategic plan, and we are trying to go back to everything we do to face the problem and fix it.
Correct. Thank you. Can you go back to the PowerPoint, please? So what we've done very quickly is assessment of current state based on student data. Then we did the same thing, assessment of current state based on adult practices. We don't have those summaries here. So now we want to talk about let me go back one. Okay. You'll notice that the first row here under the student piece is vision, mission, core values, and what we call the promise, which suggested in the past that be the domain of you as the board, that you take that on. Now you can still weigh in on obviously on every other part of the process, but that values, mission, purpose, the existential dimensions of the strategic plan, that should be the work of the board. And what we recommend is to do that at a retreat. It works very well if you can give up a Saturday, maybe 9 to 2 p.m. We can get a lot of work done. Plus, you can also do a much more intentional feedback of the work the other groups have done, so that your voice, you become just one more column that needs to be factored in before we figure out what where we go next. Well, that very first bullet is where we feel strongly that the board should weigh in on that. And it cannot be, it needs at least 1 4-hour sitting for us to do it very well. Coming after that, the second row is the portrait of a graduate or portrait of a learner. And that's an articulation of what we want for our students. So I'm going to ask you to do this exercise. These are 18 attributes, 18 qualities of a graduate, just different labels based on research. Some of those, I guess, are intentionally redundant. We do that often. So you get a chance to process it, you choose what you want, and you can rename things when you're done. But just to see where we are, if I were to ask you to individually to identify 3 qualities out of the list of 16 that you feel learners should possess by the end of 8th grade when they leave our school system, what will be your top 3? What will be those top 3 qualities? I'll give you a couple minutes to pick your individual 3. Yes, please.
I will say that when we had these in the sessions, there were definitions for each of them that were that would sway you, like you might sway you. I mean, I think it's great that we're doing this, but like I wouldn't, I'm just saying like.
Yeah. Do they have this one? Into the 3D?
So that looks familiar.
3D3?
But we're also just doing a shorter version
Yeah,
right now for her to just kind of.
Okay,
Okay,
but having that
yeah,
is important.
If we were doing an in-depth right now, then I totally agree, Bridget, that we
Correct.
would need that if we're really
Right.
like coming up with stuff.
Oh, it's in the packet.
yeah, it is there. So just pick the top three, define it the way you want, and then let's see what's common among the five of you and what's different, and then we'll show you what the other groups have done after that.
Also because when you actually read the description, a lot of them are very similar. Very highlighted in a different way.
I'll give you a few minutes, I'm gonna do a tabulation here,
Just 3 is
just three. Scouts on.
I think I have one that shows all.
Here, right here.
Okay. If you look, well, yeah, but you can,
I just showed her mine.
so if you click on the, in the agenda, there is one where it has,
So I think we gotta be done in like less than 30 seconds.
Oopsies. Oh,
30
okay.
seconds.
Go.
So 7.
We need some time,
of course, right.
okay, alright. So let's start from the left, my left, and go to the right. Could you call out your top three numbers, please?
Yes, I go with 5,
Uh-huh,
8,
mm-hmm,
and 12.
and 12 you said?
Yes.
Thank you. So let's see.
4, 5, 8.
4, 5, and 8.
5, 7, 12.
5, 7, 12. Is it right?
5, 15, 16.
5, 15, 16.
5, 6, 7.
5, 6, 7. Great. So that's my tabulation. So we're unanimous about number 5, which I presume is critical. Yeah, everyone picks that.
Yeah.
So that's a given.
So you know
Okay.
what, I think when you have the descriptions, I will just say that because there's empathy in a couple of them,
Correct.
like, so that was like when we had our tables and we were discussing, that was like, okay, everyone's like, okay, we have to make sure there's empathy in there, you know, or, and it's kind of like the tone of, how the descriptors were, like, people got really into it, right?
Exactly.
Like, they were like, oh, that sounds like you're just, listening and communicating well, but then this one's like, you're supporting and acknowledging, like, you know what I mean? Like, they were these subtle keywords where you're like, oh, that's the one, you
Yeah.
know? Even though the titles all sound,
And that's where the real fun starts, you know, I mean, that discourse among participants about what does it mean? What you will see, of course, as you experience is that in the current draft of the document, when I show you, very few of the labels in the final draft match this exactly. So we just offer you this to get a conversation going, and then you make them what you want. And you can mush things together also, or you know, keep them separated. It's always locally, what's locally appropriate. So we have consensus on number 5, and it's non-binding. You can change your mind later on. The one person chose number 4. Who was that? Who chose
oh,
number
I
4?
had 4.
Okay, so I just want to model how the process goes in real life. Since we don't vote in our process, I will now ask Ms. Watson, what do you see in number 4 that maybe the rest of us should think about? What could your colleagues be missing about number 4? And then they have to listen to you
Right.
to see what you have to share.
Well, I think I like the idea. It was one of the descriptors. It was thinking about someone who has imagination and who creativity for me. It means that they feel safe to explore different things, you know, to use their imagination and safe to experiment, safe to fail. You know, creative people are not necessarily worried about like that perfectionism, it builds that persistency because they're very creative. So I just think, and being an adaptive learner, I like the idea of just that agility of mind, you know? And being able to take in, synthesize new information and then function differently, that kind of iterative process that we've been talking about. So for me, like, I thought creativity and adaptivity in learning is important. And I'm perfectly comfortable with it being nested or blended with something else, you know, but I just like that spirit of, and also I think it expresses a lot of individuality.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the one person chose number 6. Who chose number 6? Okay, talk to us. What do you see about, we'll come back to you.
I can do it.
Okay.
That's Jeremy's favorite, by the way.
Yes. I was like, well, and it's the one that I bring up a lot too, right?
Yeah.
So like, in today's society, right, I think this is such an important, crucial piece, right? So like, it's not necessarily like if we had done this like 30 or 40 years ago, it would not have been one that I picked, but it's such an important piece in today's world, especially as we're going to generative AI. I just think if we want like our society to function, we have to make sure our kids are digitally literate.
Excellent.
So that's why that's important.
Great. And one person chose number 7. We'll go with the outliers first.
There's
We
me.
want to hear from them.
Well, there was 2 of us then.
You again?
I said 7.
There was 2 of us who did 7.
Yeah.
Oh, I had only one person down.
Oh, maybe I didn't say 7. I said 7.
I know, I.
Oh, it's okay, but speak to it anyway, Ms. Lee.
Nancy
Okay.
said so.
Yeah, why number
I
7?
said 5, 7, 12. All these things to me were things that I hope that, for example, if you're a lifelong learner and if you're a critical thinker, then that will lead you to some of these other things, to be college and career ready or to be civic and community minded, because I feel like that's the natural process of things. If we teach them how to think well, then they'll be open to asking the sorts of questions that lead them into more social responsibility or something. But to me, an important part of that is not being siloed as an individual, but being able to collaborate and work together with other like-minded people, or even developing those connections with unlike-minded people so that you can have those relationships and perform these things that are essential to developing tomorrow.
That's it. What was your rationale?
So I have the advantage that I kind of got to cheat and was in this process, right? And so I don't think that was one of my ones originally. But my table, essentially each person did this, and then your table had to come up with it, and then the whole room then talked about it. And so at our table, we kind of, because we, like, I had skilled communicator, some had collaborator, and then there was some of us who had some spaces. I think we got to pick 4 of kind of the socially responsible, you know, the ethical leader, there's other stuff right there. And we concluded that if you're an effective collaborator, that means you're good at the communication, and then you have that leadership kind of social responsibility, right? Because if you're to be a good collaborator, right, you have to have empathy, you have to connect with people, you have to be a good listener. So, and that's why I picked that, is because of this long conversation I had with my table, where we realized effective collaborator included a lot of the other.
That's great. That's great. Then let's go to the one person who chose 15.
And that was me.
Talk to us, please. Why 15?
So I said skilled communicator because that communication can happen in multiple modalities. And to be able to reach multiple people in multiple modalities, then I would say that, to me, envelops your digitally literate and collaborator and creative thinker because you're thinking outside the box if you're trying to reach everybody.
That's great. And who chose 16?
I did.
Talk to us again, please.
Similarly with socially responsible is looking outward instead of looking inward.
Okay.
And a lot of the other things, you can collaborate and still be collaborating for ethically unhealthy things.
Mhm.
So this is the reason why I didn't want to make an assumption about the endpoint that you would use these processes. I wanted to make sure that the endpoint of being socially responsible was there.
Correct. And if we had more time, we'll do what Ms. Watson talked about. You discuss, you go back and forth until you reach consensus. Again, no voting. And you do that at your table level, then we bring it back across all tables to show where things are. So this was the the various groups as of early December. So the first column shows the 16 qualities. Then what the alignment team selected. Again, that's a team that we call the movers and shakers. Then the core planning team, then we have our community forum, and then instruction focus team. So we carry all of these along in the process. Now, the one we call the two most engaged teams are the core planning team and the instruction focus team. The core planning team has about 40 people.
40, 50.
And it has all the stakeholders represented. The instruction focus team, all district employees, those who touch instruction. And what you're looking at are the top 5 attributes, qualities and the corresponding attributes proposed by the core planning team and then by the instruction focus team. So it's still work in progress. So each one of those teams has taken what their group worked on and we summarize them. So as you look at what each of those 2 columns represents, is there anything that really stands out for you? Either positively, as in agreeable or not so agreeable?
I mean, it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty similar and there's a little tiny bit of repetition with innovative and innovative, but you could see where you could, like, this is a good start. You could start putting something together. That's pretty cool.
And I think in all of them, you have a formula where, it's the part about being able to think logically, either you call it innovative and persistent or creative and persistent learning, something about a lifelong learning person in different way, but they say that. And then a part about socially and culturally responsible, even though it's saying in a different way, by a different point, but kind of the round idea of what you want in an individual in order to succeed. And all of this come back to, if they have all that, they will be college ready, they will be successful individuals, they will be mature, many other things.
So,
Yes, please.
So I guess the other thing that wasn't articulated in this discussion is our age groups. Because the word graduate is used, you skip to outcomes of high school and not necessarily think about the 8th grade and what it is, what do they need to be successful in the next iteration of their.
Correct. That's actually a typo. If you look on the graphic organization, portrait of a learner was what we proposed for a KA system. Graduate,
because then that would have perhaps taken things to
correct.
A little bit different.
Slightly different. So mind and body. So the wellness component for younger children has more social determinants of outcome.
Correct.
And so I would have done that perhaps with a higher priority, and I see that other people did that because of the social determinants of health and the impact that has on earlier ages to longer term outcomes.
Yeah, and one thing we've finding across the clients we work with across the country, health and wellness, the strongest advocates for that are the students themselves. Pretty much every place we go, small district, large district, East Coast, West Coast, they're the strongest advocates for that.
The students themselves, is that what you said?
Yeah. Yes, please.
So I'll say the things that kind of stood out to me is one, kind of like we had a consensus here of number 5, the critical thinker problem solver. That was clearly, you know, almost double of anything else, right? So that was the highest one. And then another thing that I thought was interesting is like looking at critical thinker and the healthy mind and body, so 5 and 10. For like community forum, which you would think, I don't know for sure who, but you would think like parents, and then the instructional focus team, which you like teachers. And I would have thought it would have been the reverse almost, right? I would have thought parents would be caring about the like well-being of their kids, and teachers would be caring more about like
instruction.
The instructor, that's another critical thinking problem solving. It's not that they don't care about it at all on either side, but just the higher one, that's interesting. I would have predicted the opposite. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, so that's really where this part of the work stands so far. And I would suggest I would come back during the retreat, do something a little bit more formal so that the board, you kind of take a position on what you think the top 5 are. It would be nice for us to close that out. If for no other reason, just for the documentation purposes of what came out of the board as a body. So I'm going to go back again to if I can get the clicker to work. Okay. I want to go back to this guy because this is a roadmap, right? So we've talked about the vision, mission, values piece as the work of the board. We on the way to articulating the portrait of a learner. You know, you're the 5th group that's had a chance to weigh in on that. So once we have that done, then we now say if we were to set 3, no more than 4 specific goals for student learning and success, what 4 would we choose? Okay, so when we're thinking about the model is I would start very broad, so with my arms out, you know, mission, vision, core values, that's the existential stuff, right? Then what do we want our students to look like in broad terms? That's the portrait. Now we have to translate all of that into things we can actually measure along the way. So if we were to articulate a few goals, no more than 4, we recommend for a district this size, what would those 4 goals be? And then for each one of those goals, how would we know we're meeting the goals? That's the metrics piece. And then finally, we set some specific targets. So year 1 of our strategic plan, how far do we want to go on metric A? How far do we want on metric B, and so on? So that's all circle number 1. Mission, vision, portrait, goals, measures, and then the targets. Yes, please.
Well, refresh my memory, but we're talking about 4 to 5 year timeline, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. At least no less than 3 years.
Yeah.
And you might consider doing 6 years to align with your LCAP.
2 LCAPs.
Yeah, I had a question related to that too. So when we're at the end, when we formulate the goals, how does the 3, I think it's 3 or 6 years because we want it to correspond with the LCAP. How does that affect how we phrase or decide the goals, right? So you understand, like if we have this goal, are we stuck with it for 6 years? Does that mean it has to be like a really meaty goal?
Well, we
or?
can always change it.
Well, right, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, how do we think of the goals in terms of the time?
Well, they work with the goals. This is another database. We always offer you a starting point for each section. You have 16 big ideas for the portrait. For the goals piece, just 18 of them, all right? And again, they're intentionally redundant because we want you to talk among yourself and decide on what you want to call things. So those broad categories for the goals should last you the entire strategic plan.
Gotcha, okay.
But the metrics and the benchmarks you set could vary from year to year. Okay. So we're actually not doing too badly on time. Let's try this one also. I'm gonna invite you again to do just 3. If you want to read our definition of each one of the 18, Exhibit 3A, which I hope you have, Exhibit 3A. It's just 1 page long.
Actually, that's confusing.
Michael, you have it?
That's the one I emailed you. I think it might be in both.
I think there is in the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
It's on three.
It's very
What number?
3A, it's called goals.
3A. You should say goals.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you could, back to Michael's question about 3 areas we're gonna invest in, what would be the top 3 for you? Individual, what would you recommend that we invest in? For this one, you might want to read the definition in that Exhibit 3A, just to see what we're proposing.
So I have a question. So like,
Yes, please.
since we're a K-8 district, would you say like for number 17, like readiness for high school?
Yeah, you could
That
do
would
that.
kind of be our
Yeah,
readiness
that would
for
be-
next step kind of thing?
Exactly. So if you're leaning towards that, you might want to check it and then, you know the process.
Yeah.
Explain what you mean, why you chose it later on, yeah.
Similarly, why does 1 cut off at 3rd grade? Like social emotional development.
So that you all can talk about it. So some districts just say, 3rd grade, if we make 3rd grade, we're
The
fine.
idea of the foundation, I think.
Okay.
Is what I take it.
And I'm picking some of the same numbers. What does that mean?
I know.
Oh,
You said just 3, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm making it harder to.
Anyone who needs more time?
maybe 1 more minute.
Okay, can we go?
Okay. You want numbers again?
Just numbers, please.
3, 3, 12, and 14.
3, 12, and 14. Ms. Newcock, you ready? And come back to you.
Oh, no, I'm ready, but I'm gonna challenge the system. I'm conflating 4 and 5.
Nope. Gotta pick
Not yet.
three. We can talk about it later, you gotta pick three.
So I'm gonna do 4.
I tried to change
Four.
the system for four too.
Well, I'm challenging the system, that's what I do. 12 and 16.
1, 5, you said, correct?
Pardon me?
5,
5. Yeah.
5, 7, 12,
5.
which is the same I chose last time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, it's the same three numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're different things.
They're different things, yeah.
Well, I'm really torn because I feel like there should be something more academic in here, but I really don't see how I could not have 14 in here. So instead of 5, 8, and 4, which is what I did the first time, I'm doing 5, 8, and 14.
5, 8, and 14, okay?
What did you do last time you said you did it?
5, 8,
5
and
and
4.
4, yeah.
5, 8, 4, now it's 5, 8, 14.
Yeah, I understand that 2 and 3 are very similar. What's the difference? Because foundation academic readiness between PK to grade 3 and the other one achievement literacy numeracy and science by grade 3. But 2 sounds to me like is kind of
Yeah,
it's the same.
that's the intentional redundancy we're building.
Okay, Phil's
Okay, in that way I will go for 2 because
Okay,
we cover more grades
uh-huh,
than 3.
Mhm.
And then 8 and 17.
and 17, 2, 8, 17.
Tasha's cheering for her favorites. There are no right answer, or wrong answer.
Okay, great. Well, the highest, the one that got the most mention was number 12, got 3 mentions.
I like
Numbers 5, 8, and 14 got 2. And then a whole spattering of ones. Okay, and if we had more time, we'll go through the same process. You know, you discuss it at your table,
Should be
40 people, 60 people, 80 people, reach
10 and
consensus.
13.
And invariably, we get there. But let me show you the work to date. Actually, I'm gonna skip through. This is towards the back of your PowerPoint.
Yeah.
When the core planning team did it, this was the distribution. You notice that number 1 had only 1x, number 10 and 12, numbers 10 and 12 have 2 each. Somehow, the more the group talked, they could see 1, 10, and 12, and they put both of those together, and I think that's the academic one. Okay, so the light colors just show the clustering of ideas that came organically through the conversation among the participants. So this was a core planning team, about 40 people. This was the instruction focus team. I think it's in the mid-30 range. Okay, this is the one. I will skip to the next page.
So one second, board, so I know we normally have the study session until 7, but we had decided previously to extend it because some of you haven't been on the process yet, and it's very interesting. And so it's 7:18, I know?
Yep.
We are gonna try to be done by 7:30,
Yeah.
so we can move to the rest of the agenda.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as with the portrait of a graduate, this is where the goals conversation stands at this point. There are 4 goals that have been proposed. One goal is around inclusive and nurturing environment. One goal is about equitable access and opportunity. One goal is about student ownership of learning. And the final one is around mastery of content. So these are the 4 goals. One of those goals deals with the socio-emotional or affective piece. Number 1 does. You need at least one that's about the academic. Number 4 does. Your number 2, there are actually 2 ways to 2 approaches you could take. Some districts will choose not to make that statement a goal, but rather something that's like a spine that runs through all the goals. So for goal number 1, you address equitable access and opportunity. For goal number 3, you address equitable access and opportunity. Other districts choose to elevate it because they just don't want it to be subsumed or implicit. And it seems to me like, Sunnyvale Elementary School District has chosen to elevate the access and opportunity to the level of a goal by itself. But there's no, if you hadn't done that, you could have as a spine that you address as you set targets and benchmarks down the line. So take a look at the draft and let's just get some quick feedback from you and then we'll adjourn my part anyway. Questions, comments, and I'll invite those who participated to weigh in also, please.
What does it mean in goal 2 where it says every student by name?
It's just to emphasize that we want to get down to knowing every student by name, not just in the aggregate, yeah. Individualized or personalized.
So, an individualized learning plan.
On the last column are the proposed measures, which we haven't done today. So each one of those goals have no more than 2 measures. In a sense, although we're building this thing from the macro to the micro, but you run it from the micro to the macro. So that last column is your dashboard, right? If those are the metrics, that's the dashboard. And the dashboard are connected to some bigger ideas, which are called goals, which themselves are connected to the portrait, which ultimately go back to the mission, values, vision, and so on for the district.
So thank you for giving me context.
I'm sorry.
I can't hear you. Thank you for giving me the context now, so I understand what I saw.
Great.
I appreciate that. I want to make sure that we have time for the next steps, and I'm very anxious to see the work of the board as a whole board around that core value stuff.
So I'm all ears. This is yours.
Yeah, so when in the, maybe it doesn't matter, but when in the process would it make most sense for the board to have, like a 4 to,
I'll say next 4 to 6 weeks.
the next 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a Saturday session?
Well, I don't love Saturdays, I'll be honest with you, but if that's the best day for everyone, of course, we can do that. But the idea is 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Do we want to carve out a weekday, like a half a weekday?
if that works,
That
so
works.
Again,
what I can do is find out from you two, your team, like when you're available. And then find out, do like a doodle poll or
If
something
we
like that.
coordinate from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 maybe even.
Yeah.
And it will be the same experience that each of the team is having, or a special
I
student
think
team for?
for the board, I think we should spend most of the time on the existential parts of the plan. The mission, vision, core values, purpose, and you get to call those anything you choose also.
And should we invite, which I think is a great idea, but I don't wanna take too much of your time, cabinet,
Oh, yeah,
not only governance
yeah,
team?
yeah, absolutely. It's board and cabinet would be great.
I already knew I met everybody,
So from my
Good.
perspective, a weekday would be fine. I just don't wanna, I think we do better when we're able to have a singular focus at an earlier point in time during the day. We won't be as mentally exhausted for all of us.
Right, no, I agree.
Like a 9 to 1,
Yeah. something
Like a 9 to 2.
9 to 2.
Yeah, you
We
like,
are talkers, so more time's probably better.
yeah,
Well, you need a break for lunch. Well,
We can talk through lunch.
even if it's a working lunch, you still need to plan for that activity.
Yes, please.
Question about the measures. So are those measures like measures that you suggest, or that like the groups are brainstorming as well? Like, because when I read these, they're based off of some of the measures we already have.
All right.
But like, there's probably, like when I was reading just the like inclusive and nurturing environment, we've talked about, we have, how welcome are our families who speak Spanish at our events, things like that. Like we could more closely monitor things we might not have looked at before.
Yeah.
based on changes we wanna make or
Correct.
whatever. That's just like an example.
Well, that particular example, like, it fits in the two, back again to the three circles. So what you notice about this page and the portrait page is that nothing about the adults.
Yeah.
Well, we need a parallel structure for the adults piece. So we can talk about for teaching, leadership, and the organization level, what are the metrics around teaching, what are the metrics around leadership and organization. So but this page should be all about kids.
So what
I see.
So what you're kind of talking about, we haven't talked about it, but it integrates into the LCAP. The LCAP gets to more of that specificity because it is designed for a year at a time. And some of these metrics that we talked about are gonna be lasting longer.
Well, like, for example, like in the LCAP, like, I don't know if in our LCAP I've seen us tracking things like, you know, what's the ethnicity breakdown in our advanced math classes in middle schools, you know, like, that's just
Oh, yeah.
something that we've like anecdotally talked about, but I don't think it's like in our LCAP or
Yeah.
anything, right? But like, that could be something, it's not like one of our written goals, but if you're talking about equitable access and opportunity, like, that might be a place.
That's a good example of another measure we can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's actually an excellent one. Yeah. And I'll be in that. This is the first draft. It came in late November. If you get a chance to look at the back side of Exhibit 3A, we have a very short database of recommended measures by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. And that's what we offered as a starting point to the group. Or they were not restricted to it.
So I'd say the one, like, kind of, as I'm looking at this, and it kind of connects to the last example that Bridget gave, I don't have necessarily specific ones, but I think under the equitable access and opportunity, some measurables that are connected to race, right, these other ones aren't, and so like, the one she shared is a good example of, I would love to see some intentional measures connected to.
Correct.
Connected to.
Well, similar to for goal number 2, which calls out EL students and SPED, we can have on measures specifically that calls out some racial ethnic groups. Could do that. Okay.
So on category B, looking at your measures of student progress, once again, it's the graduation and it looks really keenly into high school things. Can we have some examples of what would be more appropriate for the
Great.
Yeah. Probably some of the ones you mentioned, like you know, algebra 1, right? You know, STEM type indicators.
Okay.
Second language. Yeah.
Okay.
Do they take PSAT? They're great.
No.
Okay. All right. So that could be another one. That's another one that some districts use. In fact, some districts.
That's done in 9th and we end at 8th.
Okay.
And it's difficult for us to get measures from whatever high school
I see.
our students go to because they're not necessarily even in the area, they may move out of the area, so.
No, but I do,
We could.
but I mean, I do think that there are measures where if our kids are coming in and they're testing at like a basic math class in our 8th grade.
Yeah.
When they go into high school, they are not in a track where they're gonna be ready. They're on the A through G track. They're not on the college track, even though they're not officially tracking them. It's just, they're just never gonna be able to get that coursework unless they do some heavy academic lifting over the summers and stuff. So, I mean, I think we can say like, we could probably figure out like where they are when they're promoted from us to high school, what their level is, what they're really ready for.
Yeah, if they're ready for,
They're-
what is geometry?
Ready.
Geometry in ninth or something?
Algebra 1.
They should do algebra 1 in middle school in order
They
to
should
get
do
to
algebra 1 in
two
middle
and-
school.
Yeah, so they can do algebra 2 and geometry.
You make me if we move really quickly on the mission, vision, values conversation, this is another part where the board can really take the lead, the metrics piece. I mean, a few ideas you've come up with that the teams haven't thought about, even I haven't thought about, recently, but to actually have you engage in what will be the measures of progress for the entire system. That could be part of what we do on our half day together.
I like that.
I like it too.
Well, and we are
Thank you.
very, very grateful about all the work, and we really admire what you're doing. And
Thank you.
thank you very much again for being part of our process. So I know that we're gonna be seeing you all the time.
Yes.
We're done here, so it's not
It's
a
only 1 hour drive.
see
from
you later,
Oakland.
not a,
Thank you, and Happy New Year to everyone.
okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's now 7:30, so and as we are finishing the study session, we normally have our 5-minute break before we get into the rest of the agenda. So we're gonna be back at 7:35.
Isabel, these two keys my baby out mine, so I don't know what we've done.
Hopefully we're well, but oh yeah, you don't have your baby here, so you
Yeah.
I know.
Right here, and the baby
I
taking
see.
Uber.
I
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's.
Just we start with one day.
Yeah.
Those 4 nights.
Yeah, they canceled out the morning flight entirely. We're not on this list.
This is what I think is the reason we're out there with you.
Yeah, some things are.
There's no. That's pretty good.
Disney.
And an hour and a half is about right.
Good call.
Yeah.
You were right.
You were right.
One of the first.
No one ever says that at home, so.
Okay. So with that, we are back and it is 7:36. We open session and we are moving to item 4, comments from the board and superintendent. And we're gonna start on the left. Michelle.
I don't really have much, partly because I didn't want to go back and think through for the last month, but then a good chunk of the last month was the holiday break that I was spending time with family and enjoying that. So then, we just got back late Sunday night and diving back into school routines and getting up early and school board stuff. So it was really good, relaxing break. So it makes it harder to come back.
So I wanted to let you know that December's challenge meeting was canceled and they're supposed to resume again in January.
I think the January one got canceled too.
And, yeah.
So now it's not February.
Yeah. We'll catch up with them and then, Bridget and I have been working on, meeting with local, our local representatives and, advocating for, priorities that the Santa Clara County School Board Association identified in their, survey during this past year, and we'll keep you up to date with what's going on with that, and welcome back to 2024.
I got back from spending break in SoCal where my car did not break down this year, which was nice. On Saturday, previous to the Saturday at Evan Lowe's open house during December, I met with a woman who is part of the Santa Clara, what's it called? It's a literacy coalition where they're advocating for districts to adopt structured literacy rather than and intentional phonics curriculum over whole word reading. And so I had a very interesting discussion with her, and after that I went to Rokana's town hall that was at Columbia Middle School, and that was a very interesting experience because it was in North Sunnyvale, but the demographics in the room didn't really reflect North Sunnyvale. It's unfortunate because even when you bring the thing there, I think it really highlighted for me the importance of outreach to a specific community, like not just you have to be there, but you have to tell them about it and then more. And I think of that in contrast to the transportation forum that also happened at Columbia Middle School, where there was very, very, very intentional outreach from the high school district and simultaneous translation and a whole bunch of other things that made that meeting more accessible to the community. So that was an interesting experience.
Okay, so I sent in most of my comments. I wanted to remind the board that next Thursday from 12 to 1, Dr. Dewan's having her lunch and learn. So usually it's the first 30 minutes is Dr. Dewan, and usually at this meeting she'll give us a preview of the state of the county. And then the evening meeting for SCCSBA, which is on the 24th, Wednesday the 24th at 7 p.m. That's the full-on state of the county in public education. But the Thursday meeting the week before is really good if you have any questions for her. anyway, that is like helpful if you wanna preload some things that you wanna hear about in the state of the county. And then also, Jesus forwarded us, and also Bonnie Mae sent out, the San Mateo County School Boards Association is having their lunch brunch, the first Saturday in February. And from 10 to 12 at the San Mateo County Office of Education. And brunch is included and it's free. So if you want some free food, 10 to 12, there's gonna be a bunch of us there, just to kind of get a preview on their take of, everything's all about the governor's budget right now. There's something at the County Office of Education to review the budget with capital advisors. That went out. I was just watching YouTube earlier, listening to Gavin Newsom talk about his thing. But, more to come on that, right? And the other thing was the Wellness Committee, I sent out my notes on that. I think the highlights were they're trying to figure out, middle school's getting a lot of DoorDash. So it's becoming a problem, and people on the committee were saying things like, at my kid's school, they don't allow DoorDash. You can bring your kid a meal, but you cannot consistently be having like In-N-Out burgers delivered and it's just too disruptive, and it's making the people in the office hungry. And then there were some other things I sent out, which is like when they're doing different things, including, I always call it baby chefs, but it's actually future chef.
Yes.
So the deadline to register is January 31st. But they're gonna have it on March 29th. So I sent you an email with a bunch of dates and things for future chefs. Okay, Isabel.
Do you know if that's supposed to be getting advertised out of the schools?
This year that is the plan.
Okay, so you know when that's going out, if it's coming out? You don't know.
Well, they talked about it at the meeting in December, and they're gonna have a newsletter, so hopefully if that's going to everybody. But hopefully you haven't heard anything from any of that.
As a parent, I've not seen anything about it yet.
Is it through 8th grade or is it through 5th grade?
It's just elementary.
Elementary.
Yeah, but I've got an elementary.
You've got an
kid,
elementary
she's got
kid.
an elementary kid, yeah.
And you haven't heard anything?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
Well,
More to come.
I saw your email.
I'll send Jonathan Watts something, because that was something we had talked about when we talked to,
Yeah, it's probably coming soon.
Sidex.
Yeah.
Okay, good times, thanks.
Thank you. So from last meeting in December, we had, of course, our break, but we are working full for the Hoffman Awards. We are also starting to meet and work on the mixer, which is not a mixer, it's a showroom for the Sunnyvale Education Foundation. That is gonna be on March. I also work on the delegate assembly and sent everything. We needed our clerk to nominate me, so we got it on that Sunday. And let's see. We sent a little note and postcard to everybody, all the staff. I hope everybody got it, not just teachers.
It's nice.
Yes.
Great,
I
Isabel.
So there was a lot of deliveries in the last few days, but hopefully everybody got it at like or good wishes for the year. And we are back. And yeah, they canceled the challenge team on December and on December they had something different because they had a fundraiser and now they canceled it last week, so we need to wait until February for that. Did I say already DLAT meet? And I think that's kind of it so far. Just a short reminder, I don't know if we need to remind this over here, but I think after the last meeting, the district got the final papers for the measure, which is on the ROV.
So you're talking about Measure C?
Yes.
Yes, what about it?
No, that everything was, I think was after the last meeting, that is already on the
Everything's in.
ballot.
Everything's in.
Everything is sent on the ballot, so.
Yeah.
With all the information, and I think that's it for today.
Okay. Just a couple things, and these are all covered in my weekend update, but just, Schools for Sound Finance is having its spring symposium on April 30th. That's a really good meeting to attend. It's actually in Sacramento, so that's the hard part. But again, like Bridget was saying, there's all these opportunities to learn about the state budget. Schools for Sound Finance is really the only one that like interprets it for community funded school districts. So I'd encourage you to attend that if you can. And again, there'll be more information in the weekend update. Sunnyvale Community Services is offering another poverty simulation. And if you haven't done one of those before, I strongly recommend that. Murray Bernard offered spaces for our board. So if you're interested in participating, there's a sign up thing in the weekend update. And then the last thing was back to the budget. I attended an SF Squared budget summary yesterday. They always do it like the day it comes out, and they do it at like 4:30, which is why I was almost late to the Fairwood. Was it Fairwood? No, Lakewood. PTA meeting last night. So the big picture is there's no concerning elements in the proposed budget specifically for community funded districts. That's the first thing they scan it for. Are there any attacks on community funded districts? And there aren't, so that's good. And then the overall tone of the budget and the message is that this is a return to relative normal. So if you remember, during the pandemic, or like right when the pandemic hit, like, oh my God, like the sky was falling. And then all of a sudden there was like windfall, like it's a big swing the other way. And this is relatively normal. It's not awesome for LCFF districts because the COLA is very low, but there are no drastic cuts. There's not gonna be any big one-time funding. So that's the big summary on that.
Thank you. And the poverty simulation with the community.
It's really good.
Really good. If somebody hasn't done it, it's highly recommended.
Have you all done it? Maybe not Eileen.
No.
Have you done it, Michelle?
I did it when I did the leadership center.
Okay, you can do it again if you want, or Eileen, if you happen to be available. Okay,
You fancy to be homeless for one day.
you'll think it's awesome. All right.
This will probably take your baby with you, because then it's even more real life.
Yeah.
Your kids while you're doing life.
Would totally fit, yeah.
It's a good idea. Well, with that, we move forward now to comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. If there is any member from this body who wish to talk with us tonight, please raise your hand or electronic hand if you are online, which nobody's here. Okay, with that, I just wanted to remind if anyone is online that tomorrow we're gonna have board hours at 8 a.m. at Lakewood. So, sorry about that, I forgot to say that. Okay, comments from the California School Employees Association, if there is anyone from that body who wants to speak with us. No, seeing none, we move forward. Comments from the public. So this portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any items of interest to the public. However, provisions of the Brown Act Government Code 5495 4.28 and .3 preclude any actions being taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes per public comment. Speakers are asked to give their name and affiliation so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. So please raise your hand, your electronic hand on Zoom if you're there. We have one person, perfect. Sure, go ahead. And so you're gonna have a 3-time limits. Please start with your name and affiliation.
And it's Peggy Shem Brewster.
Oh, hi Peggy, go ahead.
Okay. Hello. How are you guys?
I wanted to call in about I'm sorry. My name is Peggy Schembrewster. I'm a parent at Bishop Elementary. I wanted to talk about a couple things. First of all, Bishop is voting to become a PTA tomorrow morning at 8:30, and I invite anybody available to please stop by and celebrate that with us. And secondly, I am calling because I follow up on the email that I sent earlier today. It was about the District Innovation webinar series. Topic was California Environmental Literacy Initiative. I really urge our district to take a look at the concepts, building concepts of environmental literacy throughout the time our students are in school. One of the quickest and most profound way that our world is changing, our planet's changing, is climate change. And as you all know, our mission at the Sunnyvale School District is to prepare our students for a diverse, challenging, and changing world. So this webinar series includes great topics such as how school board leadership can help impact some of the programs, funding strategies, which we know is very difficult, and troubleshooting challenges to funding and continuing environmental literacy. So we know that learning about a world, connecting to the world, planting seeds, harvesting beans, learning how to advocate about and care for our earth, this is all part of preparing our students for the world. And this type of learning shouldn't be a privilege like it is in our district, where only some students are able to participate in that kind of learning and some never do. So please take a look at this webinar and other types of sources that might help with building our district so that we can meet, such as, like we can match the districts around us and just be on par. I know that Mountain View, Los Altos, Santa Clara recently, they've all passed resolutions in support of environmental literacy and sustainability in their districts. And I would like us to move towards that as well. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Good. Is there any more hands? Okay, perfect. Well, with that, we'll thank the public and we move to the next item. Is item number 8, presentations. And our presentation today, item 8A, is a report on enrollment projections from the 2024 all the way to 2028. And Jeremy, thank you.
Good evening. Welcome board, and thank you for allowing us to present the annual enrollment projections. Again, you said it, Isabel, 2024 through 2028. I was supposed to pause here for everyone to gasp when we say 2028, just imagine. And I've made fun of Paul many times when he has trouble advancing, and now I'm just gonna struggle. I thought I'd start off again with the big picture. Here in Sunnyvale, we have like staffing and enrollment kind of all mashed into one bucket, and it pays a lot of dividends. So I wanted to not take that for granted and call this out. So I'd like to kind of just walk you through the year that as we see it, and you've already kind of been along with us for the ride halfway through. So I was here in front of you with Mary Beth back in September, October timeframe, talking about our recruitment and retention presentation to you. Then shortly after that, we receive our demographer's report, and it takes us a couple of months to make meaning of it. That brings us here today to our annual enrollment update presentation. Then shortly after this, we kick off next year's registration, thus starts the next year's cycle of students coming into the district, as well as the open enrollment process. And then right after that, we start our certificated hiring season begins. The one thing that's not on here is that our classified hiring process literally just runs through the entire gamut of that rainbow. So, but the fact that, we are a school district and we are driven by serving students, the fact that enrollment and staffing are put together really pays a lot of dividends in our planning. So, all right, presentation. Did you do that? Okay. Now that got even weirder because I held up my hand and then the thing advanced. So you're confusing the tech guy, which is okay. All right, here we go. Thank you. So tonight, I'll pull it together. Here we go. All right, tonight's presentation roadmap, home by 9, is a brief look back at our enrollment data, and then our 5-year enrollment projection report. And I'm pretty excited about this year's report because in the past, couple of years ago, we felt because of the pandemic, we only went out 1 year. And then even last year's multi-year projection was still kind of clouded with some of the assumptions. This report going forward is our first kind of clear, true picture. And I think Dr. Gallagher was saying like returning to normal. So I'm super happy with this report, our standardized 5-year look ahead. And I know it's not perfect, but a lot of the assumptions have cleared a little bit. So I think it's a pretty good representation of where we're heading. In the board packet questions, there was even those ancillary questions about, additional projects coming online, or does it assume just some of the other issues that some other cities are running into where development and they're bypassing the traditional planning process. And again, happy to report that the demographer confirmed that City of Sunnyvale has their process dialed in already, so that's not a concern that we'll have to deal with. So the information that we have about the future developments is known to us and the normal channel, so nothing should surprise us that we are aware of. And then, not yet, sorry, go back one. And then the planning and implementation is where we'll spend the majority of our time tonight, because again, Eileen, back in the day, this report used to be very heavy on the demographer's report, and we would spend a lot of time arguing over student generation rates or those types of things. 5 years ago or something, Dr. Gallagher said, let's kind of flip that around and really focus on the impact of that report and what we utilize it today. So I also have called upon a guest speaker to join us, Director Burns, because again, with the facility master plan and the bond coming up, it all again comes together with the number of students that we will be expecting. And then we'll end with a recap and some next steps. I don't even need the clicker. All right. So we were able to condense the 46 or so page enrollment report to these high level notes. So the fall enrollment for this year was actually up slightly from the projections. So we really wanted to drill into that just to understand what was happening. And we are confident that this was due to the following one-time factors. We had a relatively small exiting class of 8th graders go out last year, which means that the incoming kindergarten classes you'll see are starting to come down, but if a smaller overall 8th grade class exits the system, that is the structural decline. So that happened. We are aware of the closure of the Summit Denali Middle School last year. We were made aware of that back in January, and we had many meetings and prepared as best we can. We ended up, as you noticed in the report, only yielding under 40 students that actually came, but then that's a difference in our past pattern where we would tend to lose a number of students from 5th grade into 6th grade. So that's just something we're going to continue to watch. And then TK expansion, we're, oh my God, do quick math on the fly, about 75% the way through the implementation of the TK expansion, where TK will eventually become a full grade in 2 more years. The net is for next year, and we're pretty confident again about this because it's 1 year out. The forecast is Sunnyvale School District, our total enrollment will decline by 108 students next year, not as drastic as we've seen in the past, but kind of a smaller flattening of our declining curve, and so we're still overall declining. The more shocking thing was if the demographics report holds 5 years out, which again has a less degree of confidence, again because there's more time in between, we are projected to be just shy of 5,000 students in 2028. All right, so the look back is this. I won't spend too much time on this particular page, but just this is where we were just a few years ago. So the little 1 is pointing to our enrollment in 2016. We were mid 6,000s. The number 2 kind of shows the years of the pandemic where we dropped from 6,439 in the 2019 school year into 2020, and then dropped another 500. So the big dip was during those 2 years. That was virtual and then return in person. And then we're down to 100 students, and you'll see that as a trend kind of going forward. Go back one more, yeah, sorry about that. Then I'll go high sign, okay, thank you. The number 3 was what the demographer was talking about. Our TK numbers came in a little bit higher than projected, but then our kinder was a little bit lower. So that's just something that we're kind of watching, and then we are in constant contact with Director Van Maurik and Stacy Esquivel, our preschool manager, because of that overall pattern where the expansion of TK is, I don't want to say putting pressure, if you will, on preschool programs. We're also seeing that. So we're just making sure that we have good articulation with our preschool program as well as the expansion of the TK. The reason why this year's, the assumption for this year was the TK students came in higher, the demographer looked back, it was because he uses a rolling 3-year kind of assumption. And so that still included a part of that pandemic year. So that's why we were caught off guard a little bit. It was only like 25 students, but it's still, that's kind of significant if you think about it, is 10% of our overall TK cohort. So it's just something we want to watch. So we've asked him this year, we bumped up our assumption of our TK enrollment to be roughly 80% of the average kinder class, if that makes any sense. In the past, he was using 75. We asked him to up that a little bit, and then we're going to watch that every year. Works. All right, for you, those visual learners, this is just another way to view the data that was presented in the chart form. You can kind of see the two big dips with the, and I apologize for using colors, but it's that kind of that violet and then that dark purple. And then you can kind of see we're actually ticking our way up, but that was because of those two factors that the demographer, or those three factors the demographer identified kind of as our one-year variance of why we ticked up a little bit. We do try to track 4 points during the school year of enrollment just to see as we gain and lose students, just so we can try to build that into our planning so we can get a little bit even more granular in our planning for our program and facilities. And then again, this just assumes the TK to 8 number. I apologize, we always tend to back out the preschool just because this is an apples to apples comparison to our ADA that we calculate to the state. And then lastly, I know a couple years ago, someone called me out in one of those virtual meetings, like, Jeremy, you're trying to mislead us with the axis. So I do want to make a point to point out that I did have to zoom in on the y-axis. So please note that it starts at 5,000. The reason for that is that the farther we zoom out, then the less it looks like almost a flat line. So, all right, the future. Where are we heading? So if you want to take a look at this chart, I apologize that I cut off the top. This follows the same process, the same format as it did from the prior slide. So that orange golden bracket at the very beginning is TK, K 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that line is 6th grade, and then the 3 boxes represent the elementary span, the middle school span, and the total. So please note when I highlight the number 1 that assumes, I'm sorry, the 1 bracket shows that projected decline is roughly 110, 115 students on average. So that's why it's a little bit more of an orderly decline versus those 500 drops. And so we're still declining, but I would call this in a little bit more orderly and predictive manner. So that's showing you from next year's projection of 5,511 students in 2028 dropping to 4,993. It was asked, like, this assumes the full expansion of TK. This assumes all known developments to date. This assumes Moffett Park. Imagine if we didn't have those, kind of where we would be heading. So, and then you never know, 5 years from now, we could have kind of this flip in the region about birth rates, or maybe an influx of new residents coming in. But for the time being, this is what our future is holding. And then number 3 is just really showing then that 80%, I've already told you about that, the 80% assumption of the kinder class, we're using that factor, and then by 2026 is when that's the full grade level. Okay. I am slowing down. Okay. So this is as in-depth as we're going to get, but I thought this was super helpful to look just a little bit about what we do with this data. So this is the neighborhood schools. We use that center column is our immediate this year and next year's planning, because what that shows is the number of students that we have and where they actually live by attendance area. So for example, Lakewood is showing resident students, if everyone just went to their neighborhood school, Lakewood would have 429 students, okay? Then you add in the attending adjust, because we actually know where neighborhood students in Lakewood are going. There are a net 75 students flowing out. I'm doing air quotes that no one can see online, but they're flowing out of the school either for open enrollment or maybe placement in the SDC or something to that effect. So that's why that's what those negatives are. And then you can get the actual attending enrollment. So we use this to see the impact of our open enrollment and our placement of program. But and so this is knowing where our students are going at any given time, if that makes any sense. So just kind of make meaning of that. It's kind of interesting in that regard. So you can see that Fairwood, if they only had their neighborhood students, would only have an enrollment of 189 students. But again, the Explorer program is a draw in 132. Similarly, the San Miguel program has, because of the Juntos program, has an influx of a net gain of 64. What that leads us to believe, though, is that there's a lot of neighborhood students also choosing that, because if you just do a quick analysis of the overall enrollment of the school, take out the neighborhood, and then take out those 64, there's more Juntos students there. Okay? Then the right columns is the 24, 25, 26. This is where we start to then utilize we don't know who's going where with open enrollment and other programs, so we tend to just live with what is the neighborhood, assuming the neighborhood attendance. And so that far right column, the 2026, where that one is, interestingly, San Miguel neighborhood is slated to grow by 16 students over the 3 years. That's the only site projected to grow in their neighborhood attendance. That's not saying that those 16 students are going to go to the school. That's just to say the eligible students to attend San Miguel. The 16 is net over the first year. It's not cumulative, so they're not going to be down 9 and then plus 11 to get the net 2. It's just from this point in time, they'll lose 9. From this point in time in 2025, they'll be up 2. From this point in time in 2026, they'll be up 16. Okay. So then I'm pointing at the, in 2026, that negative 406, that's what we're really kind of looking for, because the majority of the declining enrollment over the next 3 to 5 years is gonna be in the elementary. That's because of those lower incoming K classes, so that's gonna then start articulating the way through. That's why the little number 3 that I'm showing shows that the net impact on middle school is down 108 over the next 3 years. But just know that that's going to continue to grow then as those smaller Ks work their way through. This excites me, but anyway, okay. I thought okay. This is cool. All right, moving on. Okay, so the planning implementation, I touched on this already, our TK expansion. So next year, super happy to announce that we will be putting in our Fairwood TK program, thus fulfilling our destiny of having a TK program at every school site. Huge shout out to Director Burns and Director Valentine, working on the instructional side and the facility side to accommodate this full implementation of our TK at every site. In addition, we'll be adding a second TK class at Cumberland, Cherry Chase, and Lakewood. So, why is this important, Jeremy? Now I'm referring to myself in the third person, which is always scary. This is, we are no longer gonna require all TK parents to open enroll. We used to have to do that because we only had TKs at 6 out of the 8 sites. Or when we started the expansion, only 1 TK class at Cherry Chase, for example. So we had to have everyone go through open enrollment. It was the SIS team says that's a super confusing process. You can imagine you just got here, you're trying to say, well, wait a minute, I'm just trying to go to Vargas. Why do I have to pick Vargas again? So due to the work of the school sites, Brant and Christina, and the SIS team, I'm super happy this year we've eliminated another barrier and another confusion. If you register for TK, we're assuming your neighborhood school. You can still apply for open enrollment if you choose to because of something like think Juntos, or if you want to get an early jump on Fairwood Explorer, you still can. But the neighborhood TK, I don't want to overemphasize the importance of having one at every site and what that means then just again for our streamlining our enrollment process for new parents.
Question.
Yes.
So for Fairwood's TK, will that be parent participation TK?
It's going to be part of the school, and so they're going to roll that in. Yes, that would be the assumption. Appropriately though. So.
Same question for Juntos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Juntos this year it was the Juntos program that started this year. Christina and Esteban, the principal, have been working with that piece, and it's pretty exciting to see that it's a full program now, TK to 8th grade.
That sounds so cute.
You should check it. It was.
And I have one quick
question. It still is. Excuse me. Yes, thank you, Dr. Gallagher.
Related to the register, I can't remember now, but I think I had to register for TK and then I had to register again for Kinder. So that's
That is also, yes,
I'll only have to register once.
That
and
is
it's in the
correct.
system, good to go.
that is correct.
That's great, because that was definitely.
That was even, you're right, thank you, Michelle, that was even more and more confusing, like, wait a minute, but we needed to make sure that as they were hitting back to their neighborhood site,
It wasn't a school.
Yeah. it was still part of that dynamic. So the SIS team is super
As a parent
excited.
who experienced that, this new thing sounds great.
Excellent. Sorry it took us this long to get it in. No, but no, all kidding aside, this is gonna help front offices, our outreach assistants, and then just getting folks starting off on the right foot with our schools. Okay, I touched on open enrollment. Open enrollment is a function of registration. So everyone who's listening online, please register first, then you are eligible for open enrollment. So TK, again, I already hit on this, TK no longer required. And then we opened us up last year, and we're gonna be able to continue to do so with our overall declining enrollment. All sites will be open for application for open enrollment, but the following sites have extremely limited capacity: Cherry Chase, Cumberland, Ellis, and Sunnyvale Middle. And just so everyone knows that, again, just because declining enrollment doesn't mean we still have the same number of staff. So we're not trying to fill any particular school up to capacity. So we're just trying to have kind of that orderly right sizing of all of our school sites. So just because Ellis loses 25 kids doesn't mean we're trying to put 25 more kids back there for open enrollment. That was more for the benefit of the audience listening online. All right. Other initiatives that we utilize, the information presented in the short-term and long-term demographers report, is the fact that we're starting our 24-25 staffing season right now. We thank you again for approving the Early Tell MOU last time. We've just launched that, and we've gotten a handful of questions about it, and even a couple of notifications, and that's super helpful, again, as we understand what our attrition is, because our enrollment's ticking down. We want to right size and contract while avoiding a layoff. And then we are also wanting to utilize that data to make sure we're still trying to maintain our overall new staffing, to make sure that we're able to deliver a program, severely limiting overflow. Again, remember that was something we said last year. At last count, last year we had roughly 75 to 80 overflow students, just in different fashions. Because of our planning and working with facilities, the school sites, and Brant with transportation, this year I think we are down to 6. And I just heard that we were able to bring back 1 student because there was a vacancy at the site, so now we'll be down to 5 overflow students. So again, that was part of our efforts to make sure that the neighborhood school still has a good draw. We're not overly impacting newcomers, which were predominantly English learners, so we're trying to keep neighborhood students at their neighborhood sites as much as possible. And then we also have the SBC Inclusion MOU, which again, proud of our partnership with SCA that came out of negotiations 2 years ago. It's working well. We're getting some good anecdotal feedback from the special education department, where again, we're trying to hold a general education seat for every student in the SBC program to facilitate mainstreaming, even if it's for 15, 20, 30 minutes a day. Sometimes that doesn't work out, but again, the expansion of the TK program is helpful. And again, we're utilizing that's one benefit of the declining enrollment, that we're able to try to maintain and accommodate that as well. And then one of the biggest factors I found, the biggest factors that we consider utilizing the future demographer report is facilities. I found another data geek regarding the number of students, a brother here in Brant, so I'm going to ask him to come up and just talk a little bit about it, because yeah, he actually was hounding me for the report in early October, and I said, we don't have it yet, man. And so was able to hand that over to him, but wanted him to just be able to touch on a little bit of some of the uses of the facilities planning.
Great introduction.
I was about to say, the introductions cannot be beat. Good evening, board. Jeremy, thank you for letting me come speak tonight. So as you can imagine, yes, I do geek out with Jeremy in regards to demographics and projections because of the impacts that it has on facilities. So I'm going to try to tie 2 things together here, and if it's unclear, please feel free to interrupt and ask me questions. So during the facility master plan process, we did use demographics and projections as part of that, right? We take a look at classroom loading, we take a look at the demographer's previous reports, and we try to plan around our facility aspirations as a district. Fortunately enough, even with the updated demographer report and the projections that we had in the facility master plan, we have this term that we call facility master plan capacity at each one of the sites, right? That is the amount of students that we can comfortably accommodate while still achieving everything that we have laid out in the facility master plan. With the projections that Jeremy shared tonight, you all can take a look at the facility master plan if you'd like. Those numbers are relatively in line, meaning that If everything continues to go as planned, we'll be able to accomplish a lot of the facilities planning projects that are listed in the facility master plan with the capacity of the students that are projected. 2, TK was touched on a lot tonight. And yeah, we are excited that we're putting a TK program at Fairwood. Our approach, and an approach that I will take blame or credit, whichever way you want to throw that, is that knowing that we've had declining enrollment, we have facilities and classrooms available. They might not always be the perfect classrooms for that class. For instance, with an expanding TK, there are times when we're putting a TK or a K class in an imperfect classroom because we have it existing. What we wanted to do was take a step back, allow TK to roll out and really see where we're going to be. Then we can start building or modernizing the existing facilities before we commit that money up front and spend money when we didn't need to. So those are the 2 things that these projections really help. Hopefully that was clear. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Yes.
Don't they need little bathrooms for their little tiny bottoms?
So yeah, so everybody.
That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Bathrooms and space, right? Like those are the big things.
Playground.
Bathroom space and playground. So this year we accomplished a lot of the playground part because that's easy for us as facilities. It's relatively inexpensive to make those changes on the playground. When we're talking about modernizing and expanding the footprint of a classroom, that's a different story altogether. Much more involved, much more expensive. For instance, if you have a classroom or if you have a classroom wing of 3 classrooms, you can blow out the walls in between, in more instances, to create 2 kindergarten classrooms. You can only do that if you know that you do not need that 3rd classroom. Does that make sense? So in regards to the toilets, yes, some kinder classrooms are not in the perfect classrooms with bathrooms. We do everything we can with the sites to make sure they are located in close proximity to a bathroom, just for that reason.
And with the projections of the Moffett field development, with these, how are the proximity of our schools on those sites? Fairwood is not that big, Lakewood is big, and I suppose may have a lot of space to grow, which Fairwood is kind of cramped a little bit. But I don't know, thinking that maybe those 2 schools will be the most affected with that, but when we see the numbers, they are not growing that much per site, and which also makes me think on the idea that when we put numbers like from 5th to 8th, we can go up to 32, or before that we try to keep under 28. How is this affecting the size of the classroom? If they go down, they can go hopefully to 25 or 24 for the little ones, and then 28 maximum for the other ones. Is it spread around the declining? And if it start growing again and more with the development, will be spread around or only for those 2 sites?
Well, I guess so I guess the number of students in the classroom is a negotiated component. So we have our set class sizes. So that's one just assumption. And so if there is most of the Moffett part, if I recall, the chart on my wall falls, you're right, into the Lakewood attendance area. Just note that chart that we drilled down to in the 3 years out through 2026 numbers, the rate of Moffett Park expansion is baked in, so it's still coming online, if you will. So we would watch Lakewood for the most part, maybe a little bit of San Miguel, but the majority of them would go into Lakewood. So if you're asking how would we accommodate the number of students coming in, it would just be, we would then have to start spinning up classrooms again at the range of max 24 through primary 32 for 4-5, and then middle schools are baked in at their staffing levels. So we wouldn't say, oh, we're going to put a 25th student in every classroom. We're dictated by the rules of our contract, but we're watching. And I think what the importance of this report is that we have a 2 to 3 year head start just coming down the line of where we're going. So the fact that we have through 2026, knowing that we're going to be declining, and then across the district, we also have we know that we'll be below 5,000 in 2028. We're watching those kind of carefully because the development is coming and it could be slowing down just given a number of factors. I think the interest rates rising kind of slowed things down a little bit, but if they start cutting, then they might kind of accelerating. So it's going to be theoretical until they actually we start seeing those individuals coming in. But I guess what I'm saying in a long-winded way is we have a 2 to 3 year window that a look ahead in order to be able to make adjustments. And the fact that we're starting from a place of overall relative declining enrollment is what Brant was saying, is that we do have space. So I'll make a note that that's just something we want to maybe drill down more into next year's report. Like now that it's coming online and there's definitely, developments being in, like let's drill down and call out Moffett Park specific. Okay. Thank you, Brant. So in closing. Okay. I'll do it. Okay, here we go. Then
It's getting late, and not just
I know. I used all the power up in there. Okay. Next steps. Registration for 24-25 begins on February 1st. Open enrollment then runs those first 2 weeks. The lottery is conducted in the March-April timeframe. Then school sites conduct intent to return during May to June. That all helps just our staffing and planning for building classes. Summer registration then runs from June and July. I want to again give a huge shout out to our SIS team because we bring on summer reg teams to help continue registration through the summer since the school sites shut down. Then we have a lot of many ins and outs during the first week of August. And because of the calendar you approved last time, our first day of school for the 24-25 school year is August 19th, 2024. And it just occurs to me that many ins and outs, that's our second In-N-Out Burger reference of the night. Questions?
Well, I'll wait till I do have a question, but I'll wait till you have to do public comment.
Sure.
Okay.
Because it's not clarifying.
It's not clarifying. Okay. Then with that, this is the time for questions from the public. So if there's anyone who has a question related to this presentation, number 8A, please raise your hand now. And we have one comment. Good. So please state your name and affiliation when you start, and the rules are the same, 3 minutes stop. Thank you.
And it's Gita Golakota.
Good. Welcome, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. My name is Geeta Golakota, and I'm a parent of a kid in Alice Elementary. And my question is about the facilities planning. As you're planning these facilities, some of our parents asked this question of gender-neutral bathrooms availability. And it seemed like a very vague question, like use the bathroom in the nurse's office or something like that. So as you're planning these facilities, are you considering, kids not identifying as either gender or gender neutral or any of these things in your facilities planning? Thank you.
I think so. Yeah. So you have to call on Brant.
Yes, so we have to call Brant for this one. It's kind of topic related. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, good evening, and great question. So to answer your question in short, yes, it is something that the board has discussed openly, and it's something that as we continue to develop the Sunnyvale Middle School project, yes, we are including a gender neutral restroom that is not located in the nurse's office. I think as a district and as the board directs, we'll have continued conversations about taking a look at multi-occupancy, gender-neutral restrooms and those options as well. But yes, to answer your question in short.
Okay. Any more questions or hands? Okay, thank you. And thank you very much for the presentation. So we really enjoyed it. We'll call you more now.
Excellent.
I have one question.
And let's start with the questions.
Okay, so just my question is about Moffett Park, because we kind of hear a buzz of like, it's going full speed ahead, oh, it's pumping the brakes, and you won't believe it, it's coming tomorrow, and then, You know what I mean? We kind of hear these like, it's like a little rumor mill, it's so exciting. But everyone really remembers that we said like when Moffett Park comes on, no, we didn't say when Moffett Park comes online, but it said, you know, when Moffett Park is being developed, give us the land and we'll build a school. And so I think the question that I hear from just people who talk about it are, they say, will the school be ready when the kids are there? And then you started asking questions about like Lakewood capability as Moffett starts coming online. And I'm just wondering, I don't really know how long it takes to build a school or, you know, like that whole thing. So I'm just wondering like what your thought is on the timing, if this is.
That's kind of a question for the three of us. So I would say that the fact that we're doing 5-year demography reports is going to be really helpful, because that's exactly the kind of thing that the demographer looks at. He goes down to City Hall, he sees what developments are in the pipeline, what's the likely student generation rate. There's a recognition that I'm just like parroting Tom Williams. There's a recognition that new developments, even if they eventually will yield a significant number of students, they don't initially. Okay, that's a sort of a trend. So we will have some time. When it comes time, we're gonna need substantial help from the city and or the developers. So it's unfortunately that the city didn't set aside space specifically for a school, or enough. But when that time comes, we'll have a bit of lead time. And how long does it take to build a school, Brad?
So from new site, like so I'll speak to what I've learned, right? Because we've never had to build a site in Sunnyvale from scratch while I've been here. So from site, like development, like picking a site out and getting it approved through CBE is a multi-year process. And then you have to go through designing and development. So like conservatively, 5 years from like you tell me to go build a site, 5 years.
So from like, we start the process to we can have students about 5 years.
Yep. Because it's a new site, like California Environmental Qualities Act takes a long time. Existing sites, it's a lot easier to get through. New site, there's a whole bunch of new studies that you have to do. So that's one of the things that you have to get the California Department of Education to approve it, so.
The only good news is that once all that preliminary work is done, it's faster to build a school with no students on it.
Yes,
right?
100%.
It doesn't take like 3 years like it was.
Accommodate what happened, you just build it.
But then as you have said before, once they open the project, they have to develop it, and once they open, normally the first people that are gonna move are not people with kids, are younger. So it's gonna take some time to.
That's what, you know, probably every development's a little bit different, but that's a general rule of thumb.
Yeah, I think for the new developments, if you can picture it as especially the conversion of like either a vacant area, a development of an unincorporated area, or a conversion of a old airfield, the initial units to go in, there's not a lot of infrastructure there, so it draws a kind of different type of family, and so it does take a little bit of time for the project to mature. Tom Williams assumes that maturation, I'm making up fancy words about the student generation rates. And then just knowing that, again, the high cost of living also then suppresses sometimes the student generation rate from types of dwellings. And so I think Dr. Gallagher is saying, yes, we have with our current demographers report and facilities, we have 3 years out and great confidence that we can accommodate, and we'll have time as they trickle in. But it sounds like kind of that bigger picture is really what we want to keep watching. And so we'll make always a highlight then in this annual report, but we're watching quarterly anyways, and it's not like we have a camera on the development, although maybe that's a good thing to do, just to make sure, because this is a big deal, because if the students do start to arrive, the ability for us to accommodate all of them at Lakewood is not an option. So we know that fact as well, so.
I think, I remember when we got the stuff from the city, right, like, I think the very soon, I mean, this is just me guessing, right? But I think the very, very soonest, which I'd be surprised this early, that we would need in the school would be 10 years, but I think it's more like 15 or 20 years down the road that we will need a new school. So it's not something that's gonna happen overnight. And kind of you were talking about, Bridget, like my experience from city stuff is even quick is very slow. Right, so they're saying it's happening really quickly, that's not, it's gonna be up tomorrow, like, the process to build in cities is even slower than schools. Like, they have to go through more stuff, and so,
Yeah.
even if they go quickly, it will not be that.
Okay, and Nancy?
Yeah, with regards to, Moffett Park, there's always, because of the downturn in the economy, Google just laid off employees again, that the need for workforce housing may not be the same as when it was first envisioned. So how that project develops may be more commercial rather than residential. So there's still a lot of unknowns within that particular context as well. So I think we will have a runway time, but I think it is important for us to start talking about the fact that this area was planned without the design for a school space from its inception.
Well, they offered us space, but it wasn't gonna meet the requirements, right? They said have this and it's not gonna work or something like that.
Yeah. So.
Fun, okay.
So I do have one other question.
Yes.
And sorry, I didn't think about it at the time to push it through packet review process, but it sounds like we have enough space if we want to develop more TK programs that might meet the needs of bilingual early learners at sites other than San Miguel. Because we're seeing we generally have overall space at sites.
I don't know how quite to answer that, because yeah, I'm not sure that was my intent or Brant's intent, in the sense that our declining enrollment has allowed us to be able to expand a grade level without the problems we had back when class size reduction went in.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not sure about that, because we did have a question about there's little little toilets or little like there's other factors than just the room when we're talking about TK. So but it's just something that if that's what you're kind of just asking, the big picture, that's something that we can kind of think about, but that's not, isn't a surplus of capacity for that. But we can accommodate the expansion. Plus, I just want to make sure we don't fill up every room just in case we get a full 100%, like Dr. Gallagher says that sometimes, like, what if the entire TK is a K class, like we want to make sure to take that extra step. So.
No, I understand that, but just in thinking of our EL learners and how we're moving and growing, that I just want to make sure to consider that we might not want to fully expand out the Juntos program at another site, but having bilingual learning opportunities for our youngest students will have the maximum impact as they transition into a regular elementary school setting and supporting their biliteracy and early acquisition of the key fundamental concepts that we want them to learn.
Yeah, that's really a programmatic ideal, which is good.
Right, so we would be able to think about that. Okay, thank you.
Do you have a?
Oh, yeah. I guess this all just seems like magic to me, and I'd love to like sit down with you to figure out how this works, because my baby's gonna be part of the 2028 class, and most of those babies haven't even been born yet. How do you count them? They don't even exist. So
yes,
why the 5-year out is less accurate than like the 2-year out, right?
I would be happy to have a quick conversation. Yes, it is magic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Should we get Jane or Human Growth and Development on this? No, Eileen, I can. We can drill down a little bit on that methodology. Okay.
Good. Well, any more questions on this item, because it's.
Yeah, Isabel, I'd like to excuse myself now.
One last thing. So registration for new parents, they would go to their, February 1st, they would go to their school of home residence.
Actually, we would open up our InfoSnap portal. There's no longer the need to line up in front of the school at 4 a.m. Yeah, we
Well, if
would,
you're a TK
same.
person,
You start with InfoSnap, you start the registration process there, then you go to the site to show them your
person know
information.
that?
So we put that on the website. Aaliyah brings a team
But
for
they might also
TK
find
kindergarten.
show up to school
and they might
ask,
show up
and
to
then
the
they would
school.
direct to it.
But we broke the one thing about COVID was that we broke that pattern of the line at the front of the school sites to try to first in, first like, yeah, we've got.
Because, it's all above, on all the, local parent, Facebook sites about going for registration and
Yeah.
this communication about where they need to go and such,
Yep.
and so I just wanted to.
Yeah, that all, we will put that up.
clarify that.
Yeah. We have our meeting with the admins on Tuesday, staff development day, and that'll all start rolling, so.
Okay.
But thank you for bringing, we'll get the word out through our outreach as well. So.
And I suppose if they show up, as usual, we have the tablets and
Yep.
computers
Yep.
inside, so.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, perfect. With that, we move to the next item, which is review and action. And we're gonna start with 9A, accept and approve the 2022-2023 financial audit report, Measure BB tax and partial tax report, and Measure GG bond audit and procedures report. And I suppose we have a guest tonight, here to see Lori. Thank you, welcome.
Hello, good evening, board. My name is Angela Lee. I'm an audit manager from iBailey. I'm representing my firm today to present to you guys the financial statement of fiscal year 2023, the audit opinions and the related reports for the district, which including the Measure GG, the GO bond audit report, and the Measure BB partial tax report. We have the independent auditor report on financial statement, internal controls as it relates to the government auditing standards, and the report on performance. So we perform audit procedures and provide an opinions on the district financial statements, a report on the compliance in accordance with government auditing standards, a report on compliance for each major federal programs, and on internal controls over compliance required by uniform guidance, and an opinion on state compliance. With respect to this measure, we have provide opinions on presentation on each financial statement for Measure GG, a report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards, and a report on performance. For the Measure BB, partial tax, we present to you the results of our agreed upon procedures audit, internal controls, and financial statement audits, as we audit them come with separate responsibilities. The financial management team has the responsibility of providing complete and accurate financial amounts and data to be included in the annual audit report, financial report, as well as maintaining, designing, and implementing effective internal controls over financial reporting and compliance with set laws and regulations. As we are the auditor, we have the responsibility of expressing opinions based on the audit evidence reviewed and presentation of the financial statements, as well as respect to compliance with reviewing related materials. The audit standards require the communication of specific matters. The following is the detailed listing of these required communications. In performance of our audit, we provide the district with an unmodified or clean opinions on the financial statement to be included with their representation, which means there's no finding. We note no material misstatement in performance of our audit procedures. No significant deficiency come to our attention in performance of our work. As well, we did not note any instances of non-compliance as it relates to financial statement presentation, federal award, the bond performance audits, the partial tax agreed upon procedures audit, or state compliance matters. As we, the district auditor, complies with all relevant ethical requirements, most specifically, we have remained independent throughout the engagement consistent with government auditing standards. In your review of the financial statement, we believe that footnote 13 and 15 are the most sensitive disclosure relating to the net pension liabilities and OPEB, other post-employment benefit of the district. So these disclosure are the most sensitive accounting estimate affecting the financial statement and are based on the usage of actuary specialists. So we evaluate the key factors and assumptions used by the actuary and determine that the estimate are reasonable in relation to basic financial statement taken as a whole. We did not find it necessary to consult with any other accountants regarding auditing and accounting matters as it relate to the district. No significant difficulties when we encounter in performance our audit procedures. And in our communication with the management team throughout the engagement, we did not experience any disagreement with management in performance of our audit. So yeah, that's all for my presentation. So any question on our audit or any question on our audit opinions?
Thank you. So thank you very much for doing this very fun work. It needs to be done. And we need to start with public comments. So this is the time for the public to comment on this particular item. So if we have any comments from the public, please raise your hand right now, your electronic hand with your feature at the bottom. Do we have anyone? No? Okay, with that, we move from comments from the board. Board, do we have any comments? Oh, yes.
I move that we accept and approve the 2022-2023 financial audit report, Measure BB parcel tax report, and Measure GG bond audit and procedures report as presented.
I'll second. Good. Any comments before we vote? Questions?
Thanks for all the work.
No, Laura, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
With that, then if everybody is positive, do you wanna vote for it? Please say aye. Aye. Okay, with that, it passed. Thank you very much, and we move to our next item, which is 9B, the approval of the 2024 to 2025 board meeting calendar.
Hello, so you have the proposed meeting calendar for next school year, so August 24 through June 25. The one thing I would recommend amending is adding in a, so for February 6th, again, this is 2025, not 2024, so more than a year away. Having it be in the same kind of rhythm as the May 15th and May 16th meetings. So an evening meetings like say 5 to 8, followed by a morning meeting 9 to 12 for governance development. And the reason is, actually Michelle reminded me of this, like we had talked about on election years, if there's the possibility of a new board or a new board member, then it's nice to have a little bit more time. So that would be the one thing that I would recommend.
So you're saying February 6th and 7th?
February 6th and 7th. Yeah.
Okay, with that amendment.
And you can always take it out, later, but it's easier to plan if you have the meeting.
Okay. So if there is any comment from the public with this particular item, which is 9B, please raise your hand now. Okay, seeing none, board, do we have a motion to approve this with the change proposed by Dr. Gallagher?
Yes, I move that we accept the calendar with the addition of an additional meeting on February the 7th of 2025.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments related to this item?
I said my only, just my only, which this will just be like, we would not know for a long time, but that girls camp I'm in charge of. So the 2025, that June, and again, I can miss it, right, but the June 19th, I might be gone, but I won't know until like the end of, like when school year starts is about when I would know that. But not that we have to change, just I'll let you know when I have that date.
Perfect, good. Well, with that, can we get a vote? Everybody who wants to approve the calendar, please say aye. Aye. And it has been approved with the change of February. You. And now we move to consent agenda items. Any item on the consent agenda is subject to review and discussion prior to being approved by the board. If necessary, any items may be removed from separate action. The public may address the board regarding any items in the consent agenda. So do we have any comments from the public in the consent agenda? We don't, so board, do we have a motion about the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, Asili?
Second.
And we second. Okay, any comments or questions regarding this item? Okay, with that, we are ready to vote. Everybody who wants to approve the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, with that, we pass the consent agenda. We move to item 11. Thank you for coming. We move to item 11, information agenda. We don't need to read this in public, or we do? I don't think so. Okay, we have our Williams quarterly report that we feel already informed, so we can move to item 12. Item 12 is public comments on closed session items. We will have a closed session today, as is listed. So if there's any public comment related to this, which is a consideration of student expulsion and a public employee performance evaluation. Okay, we don't have any public comments. With that, we are gonna convene to close session. Is 8:47, so if people is not gonna be coming back or is gonna be online, we thank everybody to listen to come today, but we're gonna be out for a little while and reconvene to open sessions with any news from that later.
We have to finish by 9:30, is that the rule?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
We need to finish by 9:30. I don't think we need a vote.
We have to come back. Yeah, okay, I'm just checking.
Yeah, but we're trying, you're gonna have to vote. Okay, so do we wanna vote in a possible extension just in case it takes us more than half an hour?
I think we're okay, I think you should just start the last item by 9:30.
We should be.
Yeah.
There's no reason to go that.
Okay, so thank you, and thank you to our translators online, and thank you to everybody who stayed until now. I hope you all enjoy your holiday. Happy New Year. We'll see you next time.
Do you wanna pick up coffee for tomorrow or the snacks?
Thank
you, Jasmine.
Is it tomorrow morning?
Appreciate it.
Usually just me, Sam and my, Sam said 4:30.
And with that, we are coming back from a closed session. So in closed session, the board voted to rescind the stipulated agreement for student 133090, resulting in the expulsion of 133090 for the remainder of the 2023 to 24 school year. And with that, I think the last.
We also talked about. We also talked about superintendent evaluation.
Yes, we also talked about the public employee performance evaluation by Governance Code 54957 of the superintendent. And after that, well, there are no news to share about that.
No action taken.
No action was taken about it. Now after that, we move to item 15, which is future meetings and adjournment. So the next meeting will be Thursday, February 1st at 6 p.m. and it will be a regular board meeting. And is 9:41. With that, we close the session. Okay. Woo-hoo.